So Zach Edey is now in a lot of people's top 10s in mock drafts. Apparently there are NBA executives that are saying he's looking to be a guaranteed lottery pick and potentially going as far as top 10. And I think there is actually some logic to that. I think there's genuinely some logic. Yeah, he's a little bit of an older prospect. He's 22 years old. So he is going to be coming into the league like the same age as a Chet Holmgren, who has already had his rookie year and a redshirt year and was already old as a rookie. He's older than Victor Wembanyama, but it still is an intriguing one. And the draft combine really showed a lot of, not necessarily that there's going to be weaknesses. Like, he's not going to be quick. Like, Zach Edey's not going to be able to guard the pick and roll. But, like, you take that into account with bigs. How many bigs in the NBA are really absolutely elite at the guard and pick and roll? Because Gobert's not, and he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. So you kind of figure things out. Again, I always use the example of what Milwaukee did with Brook Lopez. If you know anything about Brook Lopez early in his career, he was a post-up big in the mold of like almost an Al Jefferson. He was a post-up scoring big, no real ability to shoot the three ball, and no ability to play defense or rebound. He didn't rebound. That was the joke about him, was that he could not rebound. But we now see it with him. He's one of the best defenders in the league. Maybe not last year, one of the better defenders in the league. And even as he aged, Brook Lopez now is definitely slower than what Zach Edey is. And Zach Edey's measuring off the charts. Like, we have to take into account now that measurements for players now are different than back in the day. So being 7'3" 3/4 is between 7'5" and 7'6" back in the day. He's the same height as Yao Ming. He's Yao Ming size. And like, look, Yao Ming is a freak. Yao Ming was a freak. Yao Ming had some of the best touch I've ever seen. Was an unbelievable free throw shooter. But like, you're looking at someone the size of Yao Ming who moves better than him. Like, I didn't realize, like, I watched him play for Purdue, and he was obviously really good for Purdue. Other than that NCAA championship in 2023, where he got locked up by, like, the 6'4" dude. But, Zach Edey is, I genuinely do think, that, especially in a weak draft like this, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go top 10, especially if Klingon goes early. So, you're seeing in mock drafts, a lot of the times Klingon either going really early, like you're seeing Klingon go as high as 2 in some mock drafts, but then a lot of the time Klingon's dropping down to 9. Because in a weak draft, a lot of the times you're not necessarily drafting on ability, especially because I don't know how much ability there is in a lot of players. In a weak draft, a lot of the time you're drafting on need. Whereas a lot of the teams at the bottom do have their centers. Like if you go to Washington, obviously they need a big. So a lot of they're really hoping Alex Sarr drops to them. If not getting, and then that's why Klingons, a lot of people think he might go too. You look at the third pick, and it is the Houston Rockets. That's where Klingon could go as well. But after that, you've got Spurs, no. You've got the Detroit Pistons, no. You've got the Hornets, no. You've got, who's 7? Portland, no. 8 is Spurs again, obviously not. And then number 9 is the Memphis Grizzlies, who are probably going to take a center. Like in my mock draft, I had Khalil Ware going there. And if Klingon's gone, even though Ware actually did show quite a bit of promise at the draft combine as far as like his measurables were concerned, I don't know how much you can take into account like a combine and scrimmages in general. It's just sometimes like you can spot things in measurements that maybe you didn't realize. Like for example, again, Edey's a lot quicker than we thought he was. And not only that, Edey's a lot quicker than he was last year. So Edey's picked up his speed. He's become a better shooter. Klingon's jump shot looks smooth. He looks like a bit of a shooter. He looks like, not a bit of a shooter. He looks like he's someone who may eventually become a shooter. And then Alex Sarr, not quite as lengthy maybe as you would have thought, but like as far as wingspan and everything, but his vertical is nearly 40 inches, which is crazy for a 7-footer. So you've got that, but then you've got like what Edey showed, which is he's not that slow. He's not fast, and he runs. And one of the big problems is like he's not quick, but he's not slow. If you get me, like full court sprint, he's not as slow as you thought, but also like quickness maybe isn't there. But like if you look at the like agility drills, obviously for copyright reasons I can't really show them. If you looked at the agility drills, he looks as quick as like for what you would expect a Jokic doing those drills. He looks quicker than when we saw Luka doing something similar. So like even having the quickness of a Jokic, who doesn't necessarily get exposed, and Edey's a smart player. Like Edey is a smart player. He's going to play the game. Like he's going to be smart enough to play different coverages. And I think worst case scenario, he comes into the league and is a good backup big. Like, I initially thought, and I was like, you know what? People are saying, oh, if his like floor is Boban. I'm like, if his floor is Boban, you take him in the first round this draft. Because Boban was at least a good backup center. But I think he's, depending on the system, could be a starting center, especially when we see Wemby. And like, yeah, I get it. He's not going to be really able to guard Wemby on the perimeter, and Wemby's just Wemby. Like, he matches up to Wemby. Like, he might make things a little bit difficult with his length to Wembanyama, and Wemby won't just be able to shoot over him, because as far as measurables go, Wemby, with shoes on, is a quarter of an inch, or with shoes off, is a quarter of an inch taller than Zach Edey. A quarter of an inch taller than Edey. I would say Wemby does look way taller. That's all he's listed as, and I've seen pictures of the two of them beside each other. Wemby looked way taller then, but in general, like, he's not that much taller. Like, he's going to be the second tallest player in the NBA. He's going to be 7'5" with shoes and has an 8-foot wingspan, as well as a bit like a bulk to go straight away inside and start doing some damage. And obviously, 2-time National Player of the Year, he can hoop. The guy legit can play. So when it comes to Zach Edey, I think a lot of people were overthinking things with him. I think it was very common to overthink things with him, being like, and looking at the potential flaws rather than looking at potential strengths. And I get it, because if you have a flaw, that means your team is going to concede every possession. Yeah, cool. Can't really look at the strengths then. You got to just say this one flaw is basically putting him out of the league. But when it looks to be that he's quicker than we thought, he's obviously got good enough ability. He's got good enough game. And I think he could, honestly, I think if he goes top 10, there will be at least one player in the top 10 that is worse than him. Because obviously every year there are draft busts in the top 10. Johnny Davis went top 10 2 years ago. But like, every year there are draft busts in the top 10. And do I think if you pick him at 9, it might be a little bit high? Sure, in a normal draft. But if you need a big, you need a backup big, and you want to throw him in and give him a run out in his rookie year, see how he gets on, and even just having him there for situational play, he's good, man. He's going to be good. And if he develops into like, his best case scenario might even be like a Brook Lopez type player. Like if he can develop that jump shot, because he can shoot it when he's open. Like, in drills, he can shoot it. There's no saying that he won't develop that. If he can develop a somewhat consistent, like 34% three-point shot, maybe shooting close to like 37, 38 wide open from the corners, it just means he's even that much more effective. And if he can find out a way, and he's in a good enough team system and playing for a good enough coach that's able to put him in good positions on defense, he could genuinely be a really, really, and I mean really good backup NBA big. Which in this year's draft, if you get a real good backup, you've done all right in the top 10.